My hands are still shaking. NGL. I'm Hank, 35, and I never thought I'd be spilling my guts on a throwaway like this. But I literally just found out the real reason my life blew up 3 years ago. Brenda and I were together for 10 years, married for 5 and I thought we had it all figured out. Until that one night when everything shattered, and now I know why. NGL, writing this feels like picking at an old wound that never quite healed. But here we are. It's been 3 years since my divorce from Brenda, and for so long, I just figured it was one of those things, you know? Two people growing apart, maybe not meant to be. But now I know the ugly truth, and it hits different. Before all the chaos, Brenda and I were, in my mind, the quintessential college sweethearts. I was a jock, a defensive end for the university football team, living and breathing the game. She was a dancer, all grace and light, the kind of woman who made you feel like anything was possible. We met at a campus party, a total cliche, but our connection felt real, like something out of a rom-com. We dated through college, moved in together right after graduation, and got married 5 years later. We had this perfect little house, 2 dogs, stable jobs. It felt like we had the whole damn American dream locked down. Perfect, or so I thought. The cracks started showing slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. My job in project management really ramped up, demanding longer hours, sometimes travel. I was trying to build a future for us, provide everything we needed. But the more I pushed, the more Brenda seemed to pull away. She'd always been closer with her best friend Debbie, but their bond started to feel obsessive. Debbie was always around, always whispering in Brenda's ear. NGL, looking back, Debbie was a major red flag, a bitter person who seemed to thrive on drama and had a knack for making Brenda feel like I was the problem. Arguments became more frequent, sharper. I'd come home exhausted, ready to reconnect, and Brenda would be distant, almost cold. If she wasn't out with Debbie, she'd be glued to her phone or giving me clipped answers. I tried everything, TBH. I suggested marriage counseling, but she brushed it off, saying we didn't need a stranger to tell us how to talk. I even started hitting the gym harder. Lost some weight, thinking maybe she'd find me more attractive, that the spark would come back. But it was like talking to a brick wall. Her eyes were always somewhere else, her mind miles away from me. It felt like she was retreating into her friendship with Debbie, building a wall around herself that I couldn't breach. Then came that night. I remember it like it was yesterday, the night the whole damn world fell out from under me. I'd managed to finish up early at work, a rare occasion, and decided to surprise Brenda. Maybe we could order takeout, watch a movie, just try to feel like us again. I walked in calling her name, a nervous hope fluttering in my chest. The house was quiet, too quiet. I heard muffled voices from the living room and walked in to find Brenda and Debbie huddled on the couch, laughing, sharing a bottle of wine. The moment they saw me, the laughter died. The air in the room just froze. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Brenda looked startled, then annoyed. Debbie, though, her eyes held this knowing, smug look that instantly put me on edge. She took a long sip of her wine, then gave me this sarcastic little smile. "Well, look who decided to grace us with his presence," she drawled, her voice dripping with insinuation. Brenda was just telling me about her new hobby. My blood ran cold. The way she emphasized hobby, the way Brenda tensed up beside her, avoiding my gaze. IDK, it was just a vibe, but it felt like a punch to the gut. I could feel the anger, hot and sharp, coiling in my stomach. "What hobby, Brenda?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. Brenda stammered, Nothing, Hank, just talking with Debbie." But Debbie wasn't done. She leaned forward, a wicked glint in her eyes. "Oh, come on, Brenda. Don't be shy. Your friend Dale said you were quite good at it. Very flexible." She snickered, then took another drink. That was it. Dale. My mind just went blank, then raced a million miles an hour. Dale Jensen. A guy I knew from way back, a mutual acquaintance, always a little too slick for my liking. The implication, the deliberate cruelty in Debbie's words, the sickening realization that had been simmering beneath the surface all these months. It all clicked into place, brutally. I saw red. I didn't mean to, but my fist connected with the wall beside the fireplace. A sickening thud, a crack, and then the sharp pain. The drywall shattered, leaving a jagged hole. Brenda screamed, leaping up. "Hank, what the hell is wrong with you?" I turned to her, my voice raw with unshed tears and pure fury. "Oh, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you, Brenda? Is this what you do when I'm out busting my ass? You mess around with Dale, and your so-called friend sits here enjoying telling me about it?" She just stood there, her face a mask of shock and guilt. Her eyes flickered to Debbie, then back to me. She didn't deny it. Not a single word. "No, no, Hank, you're wrong. No, it's not what you think." Nothing. Just silence. And a slow, almost imperceptible nod. That non-denial, that's what truly broke me. It was all I needed. The silence screamed louder than any confession. "Get out," I choked out, pointing at the door. "Both of you, get out of my house." Brenda, still stunned, stumbled out with Debbie trailing behind her, a triumphant smirk on her face. I packed a bag that night, crashing at a friend's place. I officially moved out a week later. The divorce was messy, not because we fought over assets. TBH, we didn't have much. No kids, just that house and some savings. But because of the sheer emotional devastation. My first thought was revenge, like some movie plot. But what was the point? There was nothing to gain, nothing to really take from her. It just felt hollow. Sarah Johnson, my boss at the time, saw how messed up I was and hooked me up with a fantastic attorney, Barb Lewis. Barb was efficient, no nonsense. She got it done fast, though it felt like an eternity. I ended up giving Brenda almost all our savings just to make her sign the papers and get it over with. It felt like a cheap price to pay for my peace, for the chance to breathe again. Months passed, I was slowly putting my life back together, patching up the holes in the wall and in my heart. Then one evening I was grabbing a drink with some colleagues at City Lights, a popular spot downtown. And there she was, Brenda, at a table in the corner, laughing, her hand resting casually on the arm of Dale Jensen. They looked way too comfortable, way too intimate for just friends. And in that moment, seeing them together, the pieces finally locked into place, cold and hard. It wasn't just a fling, not just some random hookup. This had been going on. My shattered dream, my broken marriage, it all led back to him. NGL, the months after the divorce, were a total blur of self-pity and bad habits. I let myself go completely. I was eating my feelings, drowning in cheap takeout and sad sack movies. My weight ballooned to 345 pounds. It was disgusting. TBH. I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize the guy staring back. A far cry from the college football player I used to be. Every bit of me felt heavy, sluggish, and just defeated. Brenda and Dale, that whole mess, it had carved a huge empty space in me, and I was trying to fill it with everything unhealthy. Spring 2014 rolled around and I hit rock bottom. I woke up one morning, looked at the mess of my apartment, the stacks of pizza boxes, and just felt this visceral disgust. This wasn't living. This was slowly dying. I knew I needed a change, a massive overhaul. First, I cleaned up the apartment. Then I signed up for Main Street Fitness. I still felt like a whale, but it was a start, right? That's where I met Wendy Clark. She owned the place, and man, she was a force of nature. Built like a brick house, sharp eyes, and zero tolerance for BS. My first few weeks, I was doing okay, mostly sticking to the cardio machines, trying to blend into the background. But one day I was leaving, trying to sneak out after a workout, and she caught me. I had a greasy bag from a fast food joint tucked under my arm, totally busted. She stopped me dead. "Hank, what is that?" she asked, her voice calm but with this underlying steel. I fumbled. Just, a little treat, post-workout for protein." My cheeks were burning. She raised an eyebrow. "Protein? That's a whole lot of empty carbs and regret, Hank. You've been here for a few weeks. I see you putting in the work, but I also see you undoing it. What are you really doing this for? What's your motivation?" "IDK, I just blurted it out, trying to lighten the mood, make a joke. "Well, if my motivation was someone like you, I'd probably be a Greek god by now." I expected a laugh, maybe a playful eye roll. Instead, she just stared at me, a thoughtful expression on her face. Then she did something totally unexpected. All right, Hank, I'm calling you a bluff. My jaw almost hit the floor. I'll tell you what, if you can lose 80 pounds in the next 8 months by Christmas, I'll go with you to the Christmas ball as your date. I swear my heart almost stopped. My mouth went dry. Seriously? She nodded, crossing her arms. Dead serious. But there are rules. 30 pounds down, we start ballroom dancing lessons. 60 pounds, you get a dinner date with me. 80 pounds, the Christmas ball. No Z, Hank. This is a challenge, not whatever you think it is, and I can change the terms anytime. NGL, I was internally doing a full-on victory dance. This was it. This was the motivation I needed. Even if it was a long shot, I looked her in the eye, trying to keep my voice steady. Deal, I said, but then I added, a little edge creeping in. Just so we're clear, Wendy, I'm not going to be idioted around. I just got out of a marriage where I was, let's just say, taken for a ride. Don't play games with me. Her expression softened, just a fraction. Understood, Hank, no games. I started hitting that gym like my life depended on it. Which, in a way, it did. I was eating clean, tracking everything, pushing myself harder than ever before. My friend Jesse Miller, a regular at the gym, eventually figured out what was up. He saw me and Wendy talking more, saw the intensity of my workouts, and being Jesse, he started putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5. So you and Wendy, huh? He'd say, winking. She's tough, but I always knew she had a soft spot. I tried to play it down. Dude, it's just a training thing. She's pushing me. But Jesse, bless his gossipy heart, couldn't keep a secret. He started spreading rumors, exaggerating the whole thing. Next thing I know, the whispers around the gym were that Wendy and I were practically an item, that she was practically my personal trainer, and not just in the gym. It got twisted into something much more intimate, something that was totally not happening. Then one afternoon, Wendy dragged me into her office, slamming the door behind us. Her face was red, her eyes spitting fire. Hank, what the hell have you been telling people? She demanded, practically yelling. My members are coming up to me, asking if we're together, asking if I'm giving you special treatment. Do you have any idea how much work I've put into building this gym's reputation? You're making me look like a fool. Get out. You're banned. Don't come back. I was stunned. Banned? From my only shot at redemption? I immediately knew it had to be Jesse, that big mouth. Wendy, NGL, it's not me. It's Jesse. He must have overheard something and twisted it. I swear I haven't said a word to anyone. I went straight to Jesse, found him on the bench press. Jesse, you opened your damn mouth, didn't you? I hissed. You almost got me banned from the gym. You fix this, or I swear to God, I'll tell everyone how you cried when you found out they stopped making those limited edition protein bars. It was a stupid threat, but it worked. Jesse went pale. A few hours later, my phone rang. It was Wendy. Her voice was calmer, but still a little strained. Hank, I'm sorry. Jesse just came in, looking like he'd seen a ghost, and he confessed. Said he got carried away with the story. There was a pause. Look, I know what it's like. People, especially men, sometimes have this idea. They objectify you, turn you into something you're not. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. Can you meet me at McDonald's tomorrow? Chloe wants a Happy Meal, and I want to talk. I felt a wave of relief. Yeah, Wendy, I'll be there. And NGL, I get it. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. I could tell she appreciated the sincerity. This was a second chance, and maybe, just maybe, more than that. Meeting Wendy and Chloe at McDonald's was an experience, to say the least. Chloe, Wendy's daughter, was this bright, energetic little girl, and she immediately decided I was Tommy Bear. IDKY, but it was cute. Her presence really helped cut through the awkwardness that was still lingering between Wendy and me. I mean, NGL, it was tense at first. Wendy started, Look, Hank, about what happened, I really am sorry. The rumors just hit a nerve. I've had to deal with a lot of crap in my life because people jump to conclusions, especially about women in my line of work. I nodded, feeling the honesty in her voice. It's okay, Wendy, I get it. I just wanted to make sure you knew I respected our agreement. This is about me getting healthy and you helping me get there. Nothing sexual, nothing like that. I'm not looking to be made a fool of again. You know, not after Everything. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I could see the understanding in her eyes. I appreciate that, Hank, truly. And I promise I won't make a fool out of you. As Chloe devoured her Happy Meal, Wendy started to open up, really confiding in me. She told me about her past, how she'd worked as an exotic dancer to put herself through college. My jaw almost hit the table, but not in a judgmental way. More like, wow, she's been through a lot. She explained how it was the only way she could make enough money fast to pay for her tuition and support herself. Then she talked about her ex-husband, Mark Clark, a real piece of work. He was the one who pushed her to get breast implants, saying they'd make her more confident. But now she hated them. They were a constant reminder of him and that toxic period of her life. I always wanted to be a physical therapist, she confessed, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. That was the whole point of college. But then Mark, in the gym, life just happened, you know? It feels like that dream is so far away now. I looked at her, at this strong, resilient woman who had fought tooth and nail for everything she had. Wendy, I said, really meaning it, it's not too late. You've built this amazing gym. You've raised Chloe. You're clearly brilliant and driven. Why not go back? Get that PT degree. You'd be amazing. That conversation felt like a turning point for us. It wasn't just about the weight loss challenge anymore. We actually connected on a deeper level. I saw past the tough gym owner, and she saw past the heartbroken, overweight guy. Inspired by her story and the motivation of our challenge, I doubled down on my efforts. I hit the gym harder than ever, stuck to my diet religiously. And it paid off. I hit my first goal, 30 pounds down. Wendy actually smiled when I told her, a genuine, warm smile. All right, Hank, she said, time for those ballroom dance lessons. And NGL, you're paying. So I started ballroom dancing. Me, Hank, the ex-football player who used to only move to crush opponents, learning to waltz and tango. And here's the kicker. I actually liked it. It was challenging, graceful, and a total mental escape from everything. It felt good to be learning something new, something that had nothing to do with my old life. One evening, after a particularly sweaty salsa lesson, I was leaving the dance studio, feeling pretty good about myself. And then I saw them, Brenda and Dale, again. They were getting into his fancy new car, laughing, looking totally carefree. It was just a fleeting glance, but it still twisted something in my gut. I hadn't seen them together since that night at City Lights. They seemed happy. And that's when a thought, a truly insidious thought, wormed its way into my brain. How the hell could Brenda afford to be so carefree? After the divorce, I'd pretty much handed over most of our joint savings to her just to get the papers signed. We didn't have a ton, but it was enough for her to get by for a bit. She'd always been terrible with money, spending impulsively, never saving. I just assumed she was living modestly, maybe struggling a bit, but seeing her with Dale, in a new car, looking well-dressed, completely carefree, it just didn't add up. That night, I started running numbers in my head, mentally reevaluating Brenda's financial situation around the time of the divorce. Where did that money come from? Was Dale bankrolling her? It seemed too sudden, too easy. The whole thing made me uncomfortable. A few days later, back at the Chowm, I casually sidled up to Jesse while he was on the elliptical. Hey, Jesse, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. You ever see Brenda around these days? She totally dropped off the face of the earth after the divorce. Jesse, oblivious to my ulterior motives, immediately launched into gossip mode. Oh yeah, man, saw her last week. She's doing great, actually. Got a sweet new car. Like, a really nice one. And she's got some fancy new job, I heard, at one of those big tech companies downtown. She looks totally different, man. Like, glowing. A new car, a fancy new job at a big tech company. My mind started to race. Something was off. Way off. That wasn't Brenda, not the Brenda I knew who struggled to keep a budget and hated anything resembling a corporate environment. This new information, coupled with seeing her and Dale, sparked a deeper suspicion. It felt like a small, cold knot in my stomach. The puzzle pieces were starting to form a picture. In NGL, I didn't like what I was seeing. NGL, by this point, I was feeling good, really good. I'd shed those 30 pounds, was dancing my butt off, and my head was clearer than it had been in years. The old Hank, the football player, was starting to peek through the layers of regret and self-pity. But that clarity, that sharpened focus, also meant I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling about Brenda. Her sudden prosperity post-divorce, the new car, the fancy job, it just screamed off. I started replaying the divorce in my head, the financial disclosures Brenda had made. They were vague now that I thought about it. I was so emotionally wrecked, so desperate to just get it over with, that I didn't scrutinize anything. I just wanted her gone. But now, with a cool head, I remembered the numbers just didn't quite add up to her current lifestyle. Something was fishy. I knew I needed professional advice. So I called Barb Lewis. "Barb," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "it's Hank. I know it's been a while, but I have some questions about Brenda and our divorce." She remembered me immediately. "Hank, good to hear from you. What's on your mind?" I laid it out for her, the sightings of Brenda and Dale, the new car, the fancy jaw, and my gut feeling that something wasn't right with her finances. Barb listened patiently. "Hank, these are serious accusations. Before we can do anything formal, you need to gather some proof. Anything you can find. Financial records, anything that points to undisclosed assets or income." Her words lit a fire under me. Proof, okay, I could do that. I started small. I went online searching for Brenda's alleged big tech company job. I typed in her name, the company name Jesse mentioned. Nothing. No Brenda, no history, no trace of her ever working there. Strike one. Then I remembered an old joint checking account we had, one we hadn't used much in the last year of our marriage, but it was still open. I still had the login info, mercifully. My hands were shaking a little as I navigated to the old statements. And there it was, a transfer, a significant sum, tens of thousands moved out of that joint account just weeks before I filed for divorce. Moved to an account I didn't recognize, an account that had never been disclosed during our settlement. My heart hammered against my ribs. NGL, it felt like being punched in the gut all over again. She had hidden money. She had actively conspired to screw me over. The anger, cold and steady, started to build. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was furious. This wasn't just a bad breakup. This was calculated deception. I realized I needed more than just a gut feeling and an old bank statement. I needed someone who knew how to dig. I thought of Jesse. He was a gossipy idiot, but he knew everyone and everything in this town. "Hey, Jesse," I asked him at the gym a few days later, trying to sound casual. "You ever heard of a good private investigator around here? Just asking for a friend." Jesse predictably perked up. "Oh man, you're looking for Frank. Frank Anderson. Best in the business. A little quirky, but he gets results. I'll send you his number." A day later, I was sitting across from Frank, a wiry guy with shrewd eyes in a perpetually rumpled suit. I told him everything. The divorce, Brenda's sudden wealth, the hidden bank transfer, Dale Jensen. I laid out my suspicions. Frank just nodded, listening intently, occasionally jotting notes. "All right, Hank," he said when I finished. "Sounds like a classic case. I'll start with surveillance on Brenda and Mr. Jensen. See what their daily lives look like, where the money's coming from. I'll also dig into her financial history, see if I can unearth any other hidden accounts." The first reports from Frank started trickling in a week later. Brenda was indeed living it up. Expensive lunches, shopping trips, spa days. Her lifestyle was definitely not matching the modest income she claimed during the divorce. Dale, on the other hand, had a fairly low-paying job. He wasn't bankrolling her. That narrowed it down. The money had to be coming from her. And Frank confirmed my suspicions. He found evidence of multiple other bank accounts, opened solely in Brenda's name, that I had never known about. This was it. She had systematically drained funds and hid them before the divorce. The rage was almost overwhelming, but I channeled it. I became meticulous, an investigator in my own right. I started sifting through every old bill, every piece of mail, every financial document I could find from our marriage. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment summaries, anything. My apartment turned into a war room, papers spread across the dining table. Days blurred into nights, and then I found it. A credit card statement buried deep in a box of old tax returns from 2 years ago, showing a significant charge from a high-end jewelry store, Timeless Gems. The date was a few months before everything went south with Brenda. It was a purchase of a luxury watch, a men's luxury watch, judging by the price in the store. I remembered it now, that specific store, the one Dale Jensen always bragged about buying his expensive watches from. But I had never seen Brenda wear a watch like that, and she certainly hadn't bought one for me. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about hidden money anymore. This was about a timeline, a specific item, a gift, and the sickening realization hit me. This watch, purchased while we were still married, was almost certainly for Dale. It wasn't just cheating. It was a brazen, calculated betrayal, funded with our money right under my nose. The game was officially on. NGL, the photos Frank sent me, hit different. They weren't just candid shots of Brenda and Dale. They were close-ups of her, laughing, her arm draped around him, wearing jewelry I had never seen her with, a diamond tennis bracelet, a heavy gold pendant. These weren't cheap costume pieces. They looked expensive. I knew she didn't own anything like that when we were married. The rage, cold and steady, just intensified. That luxury watch purchase from Timeless Gems still gnawed at me. I decided to pull a risky move. Posing as Brenda, I called the jewelry store. My voice felt weird, distorted, as I tried to mimic her tone. "Hi," I said, trying to sound a little giddy, like someone planning a romantic surprise. "This is Brenda Peterson. My husband and I are celebrating our anniversary soon, and I was trying to remember, I bought a gift from your store a while back, a special one for him. I think it was a watch. Do you recall anything about that purchase?" I paid in cash, I think. The sales associate, bless her heart, was incredibly helpful. She pulled up the records. "Ah, yes, Miss Peterson. I remember that. A beautiful Swiss automatic watch, a very significant purchase. Yes, paid entirely in cash. You must have a very lucky husband." My hands were shaking, clutching the phone. Cash, a significant purchase, a men's watch paid for while we were still legally married. My world tilted. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was concrete. Brenda had bought Dale a luxury watch with our money, and she'd hidden the transaction by paying cash. The audacity was sickening. Frank's next update was a real gut punch, though. His surveillance wasn't just on Brenda and Dale anymore. He'd discovered Brenda was also frequently meeting another man, a guy named Kevin Clark. Frequent secretive meetings, dates, dinners, even overnight stays. IDK, it was like the ground fell out from under me again. This wasn't just about Dale. Brenda wasn't just cheating on me. She was apparently running a full-blown side hustle of infidelity. A red flag the size of Texas was waving right in front of my face. And then Frank dropped the real bombshell. He found a shell company, registered under a fake name, but traced directly back to one of Brenda's newly discovered, undisclosed bank accounts. That wasn't just cheating. That was sophisticated financial manipulation. This wasn't some impulsive affair. This was planned. I called Barb Lewis immediately. My voice was tight with suppressed fury. "Barb, I have everything. Bank statements, PR rewards, photos, even a confirmed cash purchase from a jewelry store. Brenda had multiple affairs, she's hidden assets, and she's running some kind of shell company scam. We need to go after her." Barb was calm, professional. "Hank, this is serious. With this evidence, we have grounds for a fraud investigation. And yes, absolutely, we can petition the court to reopen your divorce settlement. This looks like a clear case of fraudulent concealment of assets and potentially more." Her words were like a cold compress on my burning rage. Justice. That's what I wanted. Not just revenge, but justice. As Frank continued to dig, the picture got uglier. He explained Brenda's pattern. She'd love bomb these guys, Dale, Kevin, probably others, making them feel like the most important man in the world. She'd get them to shower her with gifts, or worse, get them involved in her financial schemes. She was a master manipulator, always charming, always getting what she wanted. She wasn't just a cheat. She was a calculated scam artist, using people for their money, their assets, their trust. And I, her devoted husband, had been her first and perhaps most naive victim. I almost couldn't believe I had been so blind. Stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold, because trust me, it gets wilder. Then came the clincher. Frank got lucky. He was doing some routine follow-up, and Dale Jensen, in a rush, borrowed a friend's car. Brenda apparently had left her briefcase in the back. The friend, noticing it, called Frank, who happened to be nearby. Frank, sensing an opportunity, asked the friend if he could quickly check the briefcase, under the guise of trying to find Brenda's contact information for an urgent message. What he found inside was unbelievable. Forged documents. Not just a few, but a whole stack. Fake invoices, false income statements, even doctored personal information. And the most damning piece? A completely fabricated small business loan application submitted in Dale Jensen's name for a business that didn't exist, with loan documents that looked suspiciously similar to the type of documents I, as a project manager, sometimes handled. My mind raced. This wasn't just about hidden money or hidden boyfriends. This was criminal. Brenda wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively committing financial fraud, using Dale as her unwitting, or maybe not so unwitting, pawn. My stomach churned with a mixture of disbelief and a chilling recognition. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, was a professional con artist. The pain of her infidelity was still there, but it was now overshadowed by a cold, righteous fury. This wasn't just about getting my money back. This was about exposing her, about ensuring she couldn't hurt anyone else. The game had officially moved from personal betrayal to serious criminal justice. Barb Lewis was clear. We needed to be precise. Hank, this isn't just about proving she cheated. That's painful, but legally it doesn't reopen a divorce unless there's a direct financial consequence, like hidden assets. We need to focus on the financial fraud. That's where we can truly nail her. So that became the strategy. We'd build an airtight case around the fraud, and Barb, with her sharp legal mind, proposed something bold. A sting operation. My jaw dropped. A sting? Like in the movies? Frank, the PI, was all for it. He loved the idea. We set it up carefully. Frank found a reliable new target, someone Brenda, with her usual charm, would likely try to ensnare in her schemes. This target was actually a seasoned undercover operative, wired for sound and equipped with hidden cameras. The goal was to catch Brenda red-handed, trying to manipulate someone into investing in one of her fake businesses. NGL, the waiting was agonizing, but it paid off. Frank's reports started coming in with recordings. Brenda, charming and seductive, pitching a completely fictitious business venture to the target, promising absurd returns. She was a master of love bombing, laying on the compliments, making the target feel special, all while trying to fleece him for a substantial investment. Every word, every deceptive promise, every manipulative glance was captured. The detailed notes and recordings solidified her predatory behavior. It was sickening to listen to, realizing that same sweet talk had been directed at me, at Dale, at Kevin. I felt like such an idiot, but that feeling quickly hardened into pure determination. With the sting evidence in hand, Barb filed the motion to reopen the divorce settlement. Brenda's new attorney, a slick, smarmy guy, immediately tried to dismiss it, calling it harassment from a bitter ex-husband still reeling from the end of his marriage. Classic gaslighting, TBH. But Barb wasn't having it. In court, Barb laid out the initial batch of evidence, the undisclosed bank accounts, the substantial transfer from our joint account right before the divorce, the luxury watch purchase, and the jewelry Frank had photographed Brenda wearing. She painted a picture not of a bitter ex, but of a man systematically defrauded by his former wife. The judge listened, stony-faced. And then he granted the motion. That was a huge win. The divorce was officially reopened. This meant Brenda couldn't just brush me off anymore. She was on high alert, and I knew it. The power dynamic had shifted. Meanwhile, Brenda's life with Dale was starting to crack under the pressure. Frank's surveillance picked up on it. Dale was looking more and more stressed, asking Brenda questions, clearly getting agitated about money. His finances were getting strained, probably from funding Brenda's lavish lifestyle or getting entangled in her scams. IDK, if he was just naive or an accomplice, but either way, his world was starting to crumble right alongside hers. Barb and her team immediately began drafting a comprehensive civil lawsuit. This wasn't just about reclaiming what was mine. This was about holding Brenda accountable for fraud, for emotional distress, for every lie and manipulation. We were going after everything. Word travels fast in a small town. The reopened divorce case, the whispers of fraud, it all started to spread like wildfire. I could feel the eyes on me at the gym, at the grocery store. People were talking, some were sympathetic, some were probably just enjoying the drama. But I kept my head down, focusing on my goals. My weight loss was still on track, and my connection with Wendy was growing stronger, deeper, beyond just the challenge. She was my rock, keeping me grounded. The emotional toll, NGL, was immense. There were days I felt utterly drained, reliving the betrayal, the humiliation. It was a constant battle to stay focused, to not let the anger consume me. But the thought of justice, of seeing Brenda finally face consequences for her actions, kept me going. This wasn't about being vindictive. It was about reclaiming my life, my integrity, and ensuring that she couldn't continue to prey on others. The sting had worked. The court had listened. And now the full force of the law was about to descend on Brenda. NGL, once Barb filed that motion to reopen the divorce, Brenda went into full damage control mode. She tried her usual tactics, denying everything, twisting facts, playing the victim, trying to gaslight me through her attorney. But it was too late. The dominoes were already falling. With Frank's evidence and Barb's relentless legal strategy, her deflections just sounded pathetic. The first big domino was Dale Jensen. He received notice that his small business loan, the one Brenda had forged documents for, was in default. That's when the floodgates opened for him. Frank had him under surveillance, and he heard the whole thing. Dale, furious, confronted Brenda, screaming at her about the forged documents. He finally started putting the pieces together, realizing he was tangled in her web. He was devastated, not just by the financial mess, but by the betrayal. Then, in a fit of desperation, Dale actually reached out to Kevin Clark, Brenda's other boyfriend, after finding Kevin's name and number in Brenda's things. They compared notes. Both had been love-bombed. Both had been subtly pressured into investments. Both had unexplained financial drains. It was the exact same pattern. Realizing they were both victims, they teamed up, sharing information with Frank. The depth of Brenda's deceit was staggering. Frank also uncovered that Brenda was trying to flee the state. She was looking into one-way tickets, trying to liquidate some of her hidden assets. But Barb had already moved fast and secured legal injunctions, freezing her accounts and preventing her from leaving. She was trapped. Then came the serving of the civil lawsuit. It wasn't just a few pages, it was a thick document detailing every financial deception, every hidden account, every fraudulent scheme, and the immense emotional damage she'd inflicted. The fancy new job Jesse had heard about? Turns out it was a perfectly constructed front, a fake company she'd created to launder money and draw in new victims for her scams. It was sickeningly elaborate. My boss, Sarah Johnson, bless her heart, stepped up. She offered to provide character witness testimony, vouching for my integrity and showing the court how I had been a stable, honest employee. Her support meant the world to me, cementing my credibility against Brenda's inevitable smears. The news of Brenda's extensive fraud and her multiple affairs spread like wildfire through our small town. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was public record, court documents. People were shocked. And then, a truly incredible thing happened. Other victims started coming forward. People who had been subtly swindled or who had invested in Brenda's opportunities suddenly realized they weren't alone. They saw the public legal action against her and knew they finally had a chance at justice. The scale of her deception was truly horrifying. Brenda, of course, tried to fight back publicly. She went on social media, tried to paint me as an obsessive, vengeful ex-husband, a pathetic man who couldn't get over her. She used all the classic gaslighting terms: bitter, stalker, delusional. But it didn't work. By now, my community had seen my transformation. They'd seen me hit the gym, get healthy, rebuild my life. They saw the sincerity in me, and they saw the blatant lies in her. The outpouring of support was overwhelming. Friends, neighbors, even people I barely knew, offered words of encouragement. Even Debbie Smith, Brenda's supposed best friend and my original red flag, tried to intervene. She called me, screaming, telling me I was ruining Brenda's life. "You have no idea what you're doing, Hank. You're destroying her." I just calmly replied, "Debbie, I have proof. Every lie, every scam, every hidden account. You can keep defending her, but when the state attorney gets involved, you'll be on the wrong side of history." I sent her a redacted copy of some of the evidence, the bank transfers, the shell company info. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I never heard from her again, and that was the next huge step. The state attorney's office took a very keen interest in our civil case. What started as a divorce reopening quickly escalated into something much bigger. They saw the patterns, the multiple victims, the forged documents, the shell company. They began considering criminal charges for fraud. This wasn't just about my money anymore. This was about justice for everyone she had hurt. NGL, I felt a deep sense of vindication. It was like a huge weight lifting off my shoulders, but at the same time, I was utterly exhausted. This fight had taken everything out of me, mentally and emotionally. It had been a long, brutal journey, but seeing Brenda's empire of lies finally crumbling around her was worth every single moment. The end was in sight. NGL, the court proceedings were brutal but necessary. Every single detail of Brenda's schemes was laid bare for the world to see. Loan fraud, investment scams, hidden bank accounts, it was all there, undeniable. Barb Lewis was a force of nature, presenting the evidence with a calm, devastating precision. Dale Jensen and Kevin Clark, looking pale and humiliated, testified. Their stories painted a damning picture of Brenda's manipulation, how she love-bombed them, slowly insinuated herself into their finances, and then bled them dry. They described her charm, her promises, and the chilling realization that they were just pawns in her game. It was hard to watch, knowing I'd been in a similar position, but seeing them stand up to her, finally speaking their truth, was powerful. The financial experts brought in by Barb's team meticulously detailed Brenda's lavish spending habits, showing how every high-end purchase, every spa day, every new piece of jewelry was funded by deceit. It wasn't just my money, it was theirs, and the money from other victims who were now stepping forward. The judge didn't hesitate. He ordered an immediate freezing of all Brenda's known assets, effectively cutting off her financial lifeline. Then came the hammer blow. Based on the overwhelming evidence of fraud, including the forged loan documents and the shell company, criminal charges were officially filed against Brenda Miller. Multiple counts of fraud. This wasn't just a civil dispute anymore. This was the state coming after her. The stakes were incredibly high now. Barb and I spent days compiling a comprehensive victim impact statement. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the emotional wreckage Brenda had left behind, the trust she shattered, the humiliation, the sheer audacity of her betrayal. I poured my heart into it, detailing the depression, the weight gain, the feeling of being a fool. It was raw, urgent, and emotional, a true reflection of the instability I felt when all this started. The media predictably swarmed. The story of the small-town divorce that turned into a massive fraud investigation, exposing a calculated con artist, was front-page news. Brenda, once seen as a charming, if somewhat flighty, socialite, was now cast as a villain. Her reputation was utterly shattered, losing all social standing in the community she'd so carefully cultivated. There was no coming back from this. Brenda's attorney, seeing the writing on the wall, tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecution, with the sheer volume of evidence and the growing list of victims, held firm. They wanted to send a message. Finally, it was my turn to speak in court. I stood there, looking directly at Brenda, who wouldn't meet my gaze. I wasn't the broken, overweight man she had abandoned. I was Hank, healthier, stronger, and resolute. I spoke about the heartbreak, the betrayal, the anger. But then I spoke about my journey of rebuilding, of finding strength and purpose, of fighting not just for myself, but for justice. I talked about how her actions almost destroyed me, but ultimately, they made me stronger. It was a powerful statement, not fueled by hate, but by a desire for truth and accountability. The community's support for me intensified. They saw the truth, they saw my courage, and they saw how I had transformed. It wasn't just about me getting revenge, it was about standing up to a predator. And in a move that felt incredibly cathartic, I decided to use some of the recovered funds, the money Brenda had stolen from me, to help other victims she had defrauded. It wasn't about getting rich, it was about making things right, about rebuilding trust, about turning a negative into something positive. Reflecting on it all, I realized this was my pro-revenge, even though I never set out for it. It wasn't about petty payback, it was about legal, undeniable justice. The truth in the end set me free, not just from Brenda, but from the bitterness and the anger that had consumed me for so long. It was like finally exhaling after holding my breath for years. Through all of it, Wendy was there, my rock. She saw me at my worst, and she saw me fighting my way back. Our relationship, forged in the crucible of my personal hell and my journey to health, had strengthened immensely. We had mutual respect, a deep understanding, and a connection that felt real and honest, a stark contrast to the lies I had lived before. The future, for the first time in a long time, looked bright. NGL, the day the verdict came down, it felt like the weight of the world lifted from my shoulders. Brenda Miller was convicted on multiple counts of fraud and grand larceny. The evidence was simply overwhelming. Frank's surveillance, the sting operation recordings, Dale's and Kevin's testimonies, the forged documents, the hidden accounts. There was no denying it. The jury saw her for exactly who she was. The judge didn't pull any punches. He handed down a severe sentence, significant jail time, enough to ensure she couldn't simply charm her way out of it, and a hefty order for restitution to cover every single penny she'd stolen from me and the other victims. In his closing remarks, he specifically commended my perseverance and integrity, calling my fight for justice an example of civic courage. Standing there, hearing those words, I felt a deep sense of vindication, a recognition that this wasn't just about me, but about what was right. In the civil suit, Barb Lewis absolutely crushed it. I was awarded a substantial sum, covering not only my lost savings, but also significant damages for the emotional distress and financial hardship Brenda had put me through. It wasn't about getting rich, it was about getting back what was taken, and then some. The media, of course, had a field day with the verdict. Brenda's downfall was plastered across every local news outlet, solidifying her shattered reputation. She went from being the charming, manipulative socialite to a convicted felon, a cautionary tale. There was no escaping it, no more hiding behind lies or gaslighting. Her entire world, built on deceit, had finally come crashing down. With the restitution money, the first thing I did was set up a trust fund for Chloe's education. Wendy was almost in tears when I told her. "Hank, you don't have to do that," she whispered, but I insisted. Chloe was an innocent, and Brenda's actions shouldn't ever touch her future. It felt right, a way to turn something negative into a positive for someone who deserved it. Then I invested heavily in Wendy's dream. We expanded Main Street Fitness, bought new equipment, and hired more trainers. More importantly, I helped fund her pursuit of her physical therapy degree. It was amazing to watch her light up, to see her finally chase that long-deferred dream. She was brilliant, and I knew she'd be an incredible PT. This wasn't just about helping her. It was about building a life together, a partnership built on genuine support and shared aspirations. My own fitness journey continued, but it was different now. It wasn't about getting revenge, or even just about looking good. It was about true health, about feeling strong and happy from the inside out. I still hit the gym, still ate clean, but the motivation came from a place of self-love and well-being, not from a desire to prove something to anyone. And then Christmas rolled around. Our original pact. I'd lost well over 80 pounds, maybe even closer to 100. I was a completely different man, physically and mentally. I took Wendy to the Christmas ball. She looked absolutely stunning, and I, in a tailored suit, felt confident, happy, truly myself. We danced, we laughed, and it felt like the perfect closure to that chapter of my life and the beautiful beginning of another. Our relationship, as you might guess, blossomed into a genuine partnership. We built our life on trust, honesty, and shared values, everything Brenda's life had lacked. Wendy and Chloe became my family, the real one I never knew I was missing. Reflecting on Brenda, I thought about the moral consequences she faced. She didn't just lose her freedom, she lost her name, her future, every shred of respect she might have once had. Her manipulation, her love bombing, her gaslighting, it all unraveled, leaving her with nothing but the cold, hard reality of her own choices. It was a complete and utter downfall, a profound and undeniable reckoning for years of deceit. I realized that true nuclear revenge wasn't about petty vendettas or trying to hurt someone back. It was about seeking justice, about exposing the truth, and about meticulously rebuilding a better, stronger life from the wreckage. It was about refusing to be a victim and instead becoming a survivor and a champion for what's right. My journey had been long and incredibly painful, but it led me to a profound sense of peace. Looking forward now, with Wendy by my side and Chloe laughing in the background, the past is firmly behind me. I learned that some battles are absolutely worth fighting, not just for oneself, but for integrity, for truth, and for the simple, unyielding principle of what is right. My story concludes here, not with bitterness, but with hope, a bright future and the unwavering belief that honesty always wins in the end. The profound and continuing consequences of Brenda's betrayal are still felt. NGL. She's serving time for multiple counts of fraud and grand larceny. Her freedom, her reputation, every single aspect of her public and private life are completely shattered. There's no coming back from that. She didn't just lose a marriage, she lost everything, including any respect she might have commanded. The shame of being a convicted felon, exposed as a manipulative scam artist, will follow her forever. For me, the trust issues run deep. While I've found peace and built a new, honest life with Wendy and Chloe, there's always a part of me that's a little more guarded, a little more aware of red flags. The emotional scars remain, a stark reminder of how easily someone you love can gaslight and deceive you. The cold realism of her actions taught me that betrayal isn't just a breakup. It can be a calculated, criminal act with devastating long-term effects on everyone involved. Brenda's choices didn't just end a marriage. They ended her own future as a free woman and left a lasting mark on mine.